Clogs arteries, the common food more poisonous than alcohol for your circulation. You've always thought fruit was the same as health. The sweeter, the better, right? That natural juice can only do you good. But what if that idea has been silently sabotaging you? There's something you need to hear. Something no one's probably told you clearly before now. A discovery that connects the taste of fruit to the stiffness in your blood vessels, that unexpected fatigue, and even to chronic inflammation quietly building inside you, even if you think you're eating healthy. There's one fruit in particular, seemingly harmless, that can have effects as harsh as alcohol. And it might be part of your daily routine without you realizing the risk. So welcome to another episode of the HealEssence channel podcast. Dr. Haruki, when we think of fruit, the image that comes to mind is health, vitality, something natural and beneficial. But you say not every fruit today is that innocent for our circulatory system. Can you explain how we got to this point where modern fruits, altered, modified, or just super sweet, can act as an invisible threat?
Yes, that's a crucial observation. Historically, fruits carried fiber, bioactive compounds, and moderate sugar levels. But in the last few decades, large-scale farming has selected varieties for higher sweetness, yield, and resistance, which led to higher fructose content. These intense levels create a silent risk to the vascular system, mainly because we often don't realize we're consuming too much.
So it's not eating fruit in the classic sense that's the problem, but rather the modern, hyper-sweet version's large portions, concentrated juices. How does that excess start working invisibly on the arteries?
Exactly. The circulatory system coexists with the sugars we consume. In moderate amounts, the body manages it carefully. But when you take in huge doses of fructose, whether from ultra-sweet fruits or processed juices, the liver is forced to handle way more than it should. It creates metabolic fat, free radicals, and oxidative stress that damage the vascular endothelium, the inner lining of your blood vessels.
Interesting. And how does that endothelial damage show up in daily life? What signs do we notice, or what gets worse over time?
At first, it's barely noticeable. Mild arterial stiffness, micro-inflammations that don't cause clear symptoms. Over time, though, you may see rising blood pressure, loss of vascular elasticity, small fat plaques starting to build up, and reduced blood flow efficiency. It's like a silent corrosion, slowly weakening your arteries without any alarm.
Makes me think, a lot of people drink fruit juice thinking it's healthy. But if those juices come from very sweet tropical fruits or are concentrated, could we be amplifying the risk?
Yes, that's a key point. Juice concentrates sugars while losing most of the fiber that helps control absorption. So, with just a few sips, someone can take in the fructose equivalent of several whole fruits, and that overloads the metabolic and vascular systems.
So we're consuming something invisible because we don't feel the damage, but that year after year is quietly corroding our arterial health?
Exactly. That's why we call it the invisible danger. There's no sharp pain, no immediate warning. The body only reveals the damage when it's already far along. And that's especially dangerous for people who think they're doing good by eating too much fruit.
Excellent starting point. Dr. Haruki, in the previous chapter we talked about the invisible danger of modern fruits. Now, I want to better understand this specific villain you call the trap of concentrated fructose. After all, fructose is the natural sugar in fruit, right? Why does it become such a big problem when consumed in excess?
Great question. And the answer lies in the dose and the way fructose reaches the body. In small amounts, combined with fiber and antioxidants, it's fine. But when it's isolated, concentrated, or consumed in large volumes, like in industrial juices, syrups, or ultra-sweet fruits, the body processes it much like alcohol. It goes straight to the liver, where it quickly turns into fat.
It's interesting that you compare fructose to alcohol because people usually associate alcoholic drinks, not fruit, with liver damage. But if fructose also overloads the liver, what exactly happens inside there?
The liver tries to metabolize all that fructose, but the process creates inflammatory byproducts and triggers what we call hepatic lipogenesis, the creation of fat in the liver. Over time, that fat leaks into the bloodstream, raising triglycerides. This circulating fat starts sticking to the arterial walls, narrowing the vessels and increasing the risk of blockages and high blood pressure.
So we're talking about something that starts in the liver and ends in the arteries, like a metabolic domino effect?
Perfectly put. It's a biochemical domino effect. The overloaded liver releases oxidized fat particles that bind with proteins in the blood, forming what we call oxidized LDL. This combo is one of the main triggers of atherosclerotic plaque buildup, the gradual clogging of arteries that often leads to heart attacks or strokes.
That totally changes how we see something as common as fruit juice. A lot of people, for example, drink grape or apple juice every day, thinking they're cleansing their body, but they might actually be doing the opposite. Is that right?
Exactly. And the issue is that these juices are usually made from concentrates, where fructose is even denser. Plus, during industrial processing, many of the fruit's natural antioxidants are lost or oxidized, leaving behind a sweet liquid with a high glycemic load and low protective value.
Makes sense. So when we think natural, it doesn't always mean healthy, especially if the product's been processed or concentrated.
Right. And there's another detail. Fructose doesn't trigger the same feeling of fullness as glucose does, meaning you can consume large amounts without realizing it, silently building up fat in your liver and arteries. It's a metabolic trap. Sweet, pleasant, but treacherous.
Amazing how a single molecule can have such a devastating impact once it's out of balance. In the next chapter, I want to dig deeper into that, when fruit, seemingly harmless, turns into pure sugar in your bloodstream. Dr. Haruki, after understanding the trap of concentrated fructose, I want to talk about the moment when fruit itself stops being food and starts acting like pure sugar in the bloodstream. When exactly does that happen?
That happens when the fruit reaches a stage of ripeness where the fructose is fully free. For example, an overripe banana, with its peel already darkening, is practically an instant glucose food. The same goes for very sweet grapes and excess mangoes. They enter the bloodstream so fast that they cause a glucose spike similar to industrial sweets.
So when we pick very ripe fruits thinking they're more flavorful and nutritious, we're actually, without realizing it, eating something close to a spoonful of sugar?
Exactly. That sweet taste is a sign that the fruit's natural starches have been completely converted into simple sugars. This speeds up a process called glycation. That's when sugar binds to proteins in the blood and arterial walls, making them stiff. It's the same process that alcohol and tobacco intensify, and one of the key factors behind early vascular aging.
Glycation, that's a term we rarely hear outside medical circles. And what's interesting is that it's behind that invisible hardening of the blood vessels, right?
Perfectly right. Imagine blood that's become syrupy, losing its smooth flow. The sugar molecules stick to proteins, forming compounds called AGEs, advanced glycation end products. They inflame the endothelium, reduce vessel elasticity, and over time, make the heart work harder to pump blood.
So this mechanism kind of mimics what alcohol does in the body.
Yes, that's why I often say that an excess of certain fruits can be just as harmful as alcohol. Both inflame, oxidize, and stiffen the vessels. And the worst part, while alcohol is clearly seen as risky, excess fructose hides under the disguise of health.
That comparison is striking. And thinking about everyday habits, I see many people who start the day with big portions of fruit, sometimes a plate full of grapes, bananas, and mangoes. Could that daily habit actually be wearing out their arteries without them knowing it?
Unfortunately, yes. It's the kind of excess that doesn't cause immediate symptoms, but, over time, speeds up silent inflammatory processes. That's why I always recommend balance, and whenever possible, combining fruit with sources of fiber, good fats, or light protein to slow sugar absorption.
Great tip. So if I eat some grapes with a handful of nuts or a bit of plain yogurt, I'm helping my body control that glucose spike?
Exactly. That's a simple but powerful trick. Fat and protein slow down fructose digestion, allowing the body to process it more calmly. It's a small adjustment that can make a huge difference in vascular health over the years.
Fascinating. And that leads us to the next point I really want to discuss, that feeling of immediate energy certain fruits give you, but that quickly turns into fatigue and fat buildup. Dr. Haruki, it's very common to hear people say they eat a piece of fruit before the gym or in the middle of the afternoon to get some energy. And indeed, some fruits do seem to give that instant boost. But you say that this can actually be a trap, that this energy is an illusion. How so?
That's a very common and misleading perception. When you eat fruits with a high glycemic index, like grapes, ripe bananas, or mangoes, the fructose and glucose quickly flood the bloodstream, giving you an energy spike. But that spike is followed by a sharp drop, what we call reactive hypoglycemia. That's when you feel tired, hungry again, and worse, your body starts storing fat in tissues and arteries.
So what begins as an energy burst ends just a few hours later in sluggishness, apathy, and a body trying to stash fat away. That's pretty far from what you'd expect from a healthy food.
Exactly. The human body interprets those sugar highs and crashes as an imbalance. It goes into compensation mode, first releasing excess insulin, then storing whatever sugar wasn't used as energy in the form of fat. And repeating this process daily leads to chronic inflammation that directly affects the cardiovascular system.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that kind of metabolic response is similar to what happens with sodas or candies, right? In other words, the body doesn't really distinguish whether the sugar came from grape juice or a candy bar.
You're absolutely right. The body reacts to the type and amount of sugar, not its romantic origin. If the fructose load is high, even if it comes from fruit, the metabolic impact will be similar. And it's even worse when the fruit is eaten alone, without fiber, fat, or protein to regulate absorption.
And how does that affect circulation specifically? What happens to our vessels during these sugar highs and crashes?
First, there's temporary vasoconstriction. The vessels tighten. Then, with a repetition of that cycle, structural damage sets in, arterial stiffness, higher triglycerides, and activation of the inflammatory system. Meanwhile, excess insulin starts losing its effectiveness, a phenomenon we call insulin resistance, which worsens visceral and vascular fat buildup.
That helps explain why so many people suffer from chronic fatigue, right? They eat fruit thinking it'll help, but feel sleepy or hungry soon after. And that's not even counting the hidden stress on the blood vessels.
Exactly. The false sense of energy is deceptive. You feel a boost, but then comes the cost. Hunger, oxidative stress, inflammation, and over time, a higher cardiovascular risk. That's why I always tell my patients to prefer fruits with a low glycemic index and never eat them alone.
Great segue into our next topic, Doctor. I want to talk about that silent consequence, the direct side effect on blood vessels. Dr. Haruki, by now we can see that excess fructose, even from seemingly harmless fruits, has serious metabolic effects. But now, I want to focus directly on the blood vessels. What exactly happens to them with this kind of diet repeated day after day?
Too much fructose sets off a chain reaction that compromises vascular integrity. The first impact is on the endothelium, the inner layer of the vessels that keeps blood flow smooth and steady. With constant sugar presence, that endothelium suffers micro-injuries. And where there's injury, the body sends inflammation. Over time, this promotes fat plaque buildup and narrows the arteries.
So it's like the arteries start losing their smoothness and elasticity? I picture something like a flexible hose that slowly turns stiff.
That's an excellent image. And worse, while a hose might show visible wear, your vessels do it silently. You could be 35 or 40 years old and already have circulation with advanced inflammatory patterns, even without obvious symptoms. It all starts with that daily, chronic fructose overload that raises triglycerides, promotes oxidative stress, and creates the perfect environment for plaque formation.
And what does it mean in practice to have high triglycerides? People usually focus only on cholesterol, but you emphasize triglycerides as a key marker.
They're crucial. Triglycerides are fat particles circulating in the blood. When they're high, it means the liver is turning sugar into fat, mostly due to excess fructose. Those triglycerides stick to artery walls, forming a kind of sticky fat that blocks blood flow. This increases the risk of heart attack, stroke, and even kidney disease.
So what looked like a simple piece of fruit eventually turns into a trigger for artery blockage. And that's what you mean by side effect on blood vessels.
Exactly. It's an indirect but deeply harmful effect. And the problem is, because it's a slow process, it's often only discovered when someone already has severe symptoms or a cardiovascular emergency. That's why prevention needs to start early, much earlier.
I imagine it's common for patients to say things like, "But I only drink grape juice," or "I eat fruit every day," as if that automatically meant health, when in fact, they're feeding this silent cycle.
That happens all the time. A healthy but poorly guided diet can actually be more dangerous than an obviously bad one, because it misleads people. And unfortunately, the body doesn't care about intentions. It only reacts to biochemical stimuli.
Excellent point. And all this leads us to an even more provocative comparison, what you call the alcohol-like effect. Dr. Haruki, throughout our talk, you made several comparisons between excess fructose and alcohol. That really caught my attention because culturally, alcohol is seen as the villain, while fruit is treated almost like sacred food. What exactly do these two have in common when we talk about vascular health?
It's a provocative comparison, I know, but absolutely necessary. Both fructose and alcohol share one thing. They're primarily metabolized in the liver. And both, when consumed in excess, generate the same toxic byproducts, trigger systemic inflammation, oxidative stress, and promote fat accumulation, especially in the liver and bloodstream. In other words, the body doesn't treat fructose as something innocent. It sees it as a challenging metabolic substrate.
And does that mean, for example, that a child who drinks concentrated grape juice every day might be putting their body under a kind of metabolic stress similar to someone who drinks alcohol?
Metabolically speaking, yes. The main difference is that alcohol also affects the central nervous system, while fructose's effect is more focused on the liver and endocrine system. But the impact on vascular health can be just as devastating. In fact, recent studies show that excessive fructose intake in childhood is directly linked to early liver disease and insulin resistance.
Insulin resistance, that term keeps coming up in modern diseases. And that's also a result of excess fructose?
Yes, it's one of the most concerning consequences. The body starts needing more insulin to handle the same amount of sugar. Over time, that system collapses. The pancreas wears out, insulin levels stay chronically high, and that alone inflames the vessels, speeds up fat buildup, and opens the door to metabolic syndrome, a cluster of conditions including high blood pressure, elevated bad cholesterol, altered glucose, and abdominal obesity.
So we're talking about a vicious cycle where fructose triggers more insulin, which in turn causes more inflammation, which further damages the vessels, and the body spirals downward?
Exactly. And the most alarming part is that this cycle often starts with what people consider healthy choices, like a natural juice or a bowl of sweet fruit after every meal. The intoxication isn't acute. It's silent, progressive, and socially accepted. That's why I call it the silent intoxication of the vascular system.
That expression is powerful, but it seems necessary. Because the impact is there, it's just hidden behind the idea of health. It's almost an inversion of values.
Yes. The biggest challenge is changing people's mindset. When we compare concentrated grape juice to a glass of wine or even a shot of spirits in terms of liver and vascular load, many people are shocked. But the data is clear. The problem isn't the fruit itself, but the excess, the form, and the context in which it's consumed.
And that sets us up perfectly for what I know many people are waiting to hear, to find out which specific fruit, according to you, can be even more poisonous than alcohol. Dr. Haruki, we've reached the most controversial point in our conversation. Throughout the previous chapters, you mentioned there's one fruit in particular that can be more poisonous than alcohol when it comes to circulation and vascular health. Can you tell us which fruit that is, and why it has become so dangerous?
Of course. The fruit in question is the grape, especially when consumed in excess or in the form of concentrated juice. Grapes themselves have some interesting antioxidant properties, like resveratrol. But what few people know is that they also carry one of the highest concentrations of fructose among common fruits. And when transformed into juice, especially industrial or concentrated juice, they become a real glycemic bomb for the body.
That's curious because grape juice is sold as a superfood in many countries, rich in antioxidants, good for the heart, even comparable to red wine. But from what you're saying, there's another side to that story, one that's not so healthy.
Exactly. The problem lies in how the juice is made. During industrial processing, there's intense oxidation of the grape's natural phenolic compounds. In other words, the antioxidants are lost, or even turned into pro-oxidants. On top of that, concentrated juice usually contains the sugar of several grapes in a single glass. That means an extremely high fructose load, equal to or even higher than that of soft drinks.
Wow! So that thick purple glass of grape juice that so many people drink every day, believing it's a natural heart remedy, might actually be clogging their arteries?
Unfortunately, yes. If it's consumed without moderation and outside a balanced context, it can have effects similar to alcohol. It raises triglycerides, promotes insulin resistance, triggers chronic inflammation, and speeds up vessel stiffening. It's what I call the dangerous sweetness, something that looks harmless but silently intoxicates.
That completely changes how we see so-called good foods. Have you seen real-life cases in your practice where excessive grape or grape juice consumption was behind bad test results?
Yes, many. I've treated patients with persistently high triglycerides and early fatty liver disease who were simply drinking grape juice every day, believing they were protecting their heart. When they stopped the juice and adjusted their diet, their levels improved in just a few weeks. One patient even made natural grape juice at home and drank 3 glasses a day. His intention was good, but the result was an inflamed liver and narrowing arteries.
That's amazing. It shows that the problem isn't just industrial food, but also our well-meaning but misguided habits. Excess, even of something natural, can be toxic.
Absolutely. The secret lies in context, moderation, and how foods are combined. And with fruits like grapes, which have high fructose content and a strong glycemic impact, conscious, balanced consumption is essential. Ideally, eat the whole fruit, not the juice.
Perfect. And since we're wrapping up, I'd like to end with solutions. In the next chapter, could you tell us which fruits truly help vascular health, the ones that cleanse, reduce inflammation, and restore blood flow? Dr. Haruki, after everything you explained about the silent damage from fructose, the risks of grapes and concentrated juices, I think a lot of people are wondering, so what can I eat safely? Are there fruits that really help protect the arteries?
Yes, absolutely. The problem was never the fruit itself, but the type, the amount, and the context. There are fruits that do the opposite of everything we've discussed. Fruits with a low glycemic index, rich in fiber, real antioxidants, and anti-inflammatory compounds. They're true allies of the cardiovascular system.
Great to hear that. And which fruits would you call artery-friendly?
I really like to recommend berries, strawberries, blueberries, and raspberries. They're low in fructose, rich in anthocyanins, and help reduce cholesterol oxidation. Also, avocado is an extremely underrated fruit. It's rich in healthy fats, has powerful anti-inflammatory properties, and helps improve lipid profiles and protect the vascular endothelium.
Interesting that you mention avocado as a fruit. Most people forget it's in that category. And it also has that satisfying quality, right?
Exactly. Avocado is a great source of satiety, has virtually no glycemic impact, and regular consumption is linked to a lower risk of metabolic syndrome. Another key point is that these fruits, when eaten with other natural foods like nuts, full-fat yogurt, or small homemade mixes, help reduce chronic inflammation, which is what damages the arteries most.
You mentioned homemade mixes, and that reminds me of something you told me off the record, a breakfast combination you make with blueberries and seeds. Could you share that with us?
Sure. Something I often make is mixing a handful of fresh blueberries with plain, unsweetened yogurt, and a spoonful of chia seeds. Sometimes I add a few slices of avocado too. That combo provides antioxidants, probiotics, and soluble fiber that help protect the vessels. It's simple, quick, and has a really positive effect on the cardiovascular system, especially when done regularly.
Fantastic. A practical recipe with accessible foods and, most importantly, one that helps the body protect itself naturally. Dr. Tanaka, I want to thank you deeply for this conversation. It was a real masterclass, but with that lightness only someone who truly lives what they teach can convey.
It was my pleasure. Information is a powerful tool for transformation, and if people learn how to choose and consume the right foods, they can truly change the course of their health, with simple, conscious, and consistent decisions.
Excellent closing message. And to you watching until now, our talk with Dr. Haruki Tanaka ends here, but the video isn't over. I'll still explain some key details about hidden sugars in foods, how to spot dangerous juices on labels, and which food combinations help neutralize fructose's effects day to day. So stay with me. The next few minutes can make all the difference in how you take care of your health and your arteries. Let's keep going. Number 12. The whole wheat bread in disguise. My conversation with Dr. Tanaka was eye-opening, especially when he talked about the hidden dangers in foods that, at first glance, seem healthy. One of the biggest examples of this is the so-called whole wheat bread we find on supermarket shelves. Despite the pretty packaging and health claims, many of these breads are far from a good choice for anyone who wants to protect their arteries. In reality, what you often find are formulas packed with white flour, sugar, and a list of additives almost impossible to pronounce. Have you ever stopped to read the label on a whole wheat bread? The trick is in the mix. Many brands use a small percentage of whole flour just to justify the name, but the base is still refined flour. And the problem with refined flour is that it quickly turns into glucose in the bloodstream, causing insulin spikes and fat buildup, including in your blood vessels. That encourages plaque formation and hardening of the arteries, exactly what we're trying to avoid. On top of that, these industrial breads often contain hidden sugars under names like maltodextrin, corn syrup, or even honey, which makes things even worse. These added sugars increase systemic inflammation and fuel imbalances in the body, such as insulin resistance and high triglycerides. All of this directly affects cardiovascular health, especially when consumed daily, which is exactly what happens for many people around the world. But the good news is there are much better alternatives. One of them is real 100% whole grain bread, made from whole grains and no artificial additives. An even healthier option is homemade bread made with oat flour, almond flour, or even chickpea flour. These ingredients bring fiber, protein, and healthy fats that promote satiety, stabilize blood sugar, and, most importantly, don't inflame your body. It's also worth considering ditching bread altogether and investing in other sources of natural carbs. How about starting your day with boiled sweet potato, green banana, or a mix of fruit with seeds? These foods are alive, packed with nutrients, and don't sabotage your arteries like industrial bread does. Plus, they don't cause that constant hunger a few hours after eating, the way white bread disguised as whole does. So, next time you're at the supermarket, think twice before grabbing that loaf with the word whole printed on the label. Your heart's health starts with small choices, and swapping that misleading bread for truly nutritious foods can be a decisive step toward cleaning your arteries and preventing future circulation problems. Number 11. The healthy yogurt that causes inflammation. Dr. Tanaka always surprises me when he talks about so-called functional foods that, in practice, do the opposite of what they promise. One of the most shocking examples is fruit yogurt sold as healthy. At first glance, it looks perfect, creamy, colorful, and full of health claims on the label. But a quick look at the ingredient list reveals that it's closer to a dessert than a beneficial food. The truth is, many of these yogurts are sugar bombs in disguise. Have you noticed that some yogurts contain more sugar than a soda? That insanely high concentration not only throws your glucose levels off balance, but also triggers inflammation in your body. Excess sugar feeds fat cells and promotes the production of inflammatory substances that damage blood vessels. The result is stiffer arteries, higher triglycerides, and an overworked heart, the complete opposite of what people want when they choose something fit. Besides sugar, another serious problem is chemical additives. Coloring agents, flavorings, and thickeners are widely used to give yogurt its natural taste, texture, and appearance. These compounds disrupt the balance of the gut microbiome, destroying beneficial bacteria and paving the way for chronic inflammation. And since the gut and heart are closely connected, that imbalance directly impacts cardiovascular health. An inflamed gut means inflamed arteries. But not all yogurt is the enemy. Plain, full-fat yogurt without sugar or artificial flavors is an excellent source of probiotics and high-quality protein. It supports digestion, strengthens the immune system, and even improves mood, since those beneficial microbes produce compounds that affect the brain. The key is to choose pure versions made with real milk and live cultures, nothing else. The body recognizes what's natural and responds with balance. A valuable tip is to customize your yogurt at home. Just buy plain yogurt and add fresh fruit, seeds, or even a touch of pure honey if you want some sweetness. That way, you get a truly functional meal, rich in fiber, antioxidants, and healthy fats. It's nutritious, keeps your gut healthy, and avoids the glucose spikes that inflame your body. Simple, affordable, and far more effective for protecting your arteries. So next time you see a fit yogurt on the shelf with a colorful label and words like zero fat or with natural fruit, be skeptical. Most of them are marketing, not health. Always choose simple, fresh, and real foods. Your gut will thank you, your arteries will grow stronger, and your body will finally find the balance those flashy products promise, but rarely deliver. Number 10. The sweet granola that clogs arteries. Not every food that looks healthy actually is, and Dr. Tanaka made that clear when we talk about granola. Hugely popular among people trying to eat more naturally, industrial granola can be a real trap. Many people eat it thinking they're making a positive choice, but in reality, they're consuming a dangerous mix of sugars, bad oils, and highly inflammatory ingredients. It's the classic case of a food that dresses up like a hero, but acts like a villain. The composition of most store-bought granolas is alarming. They combine refined oats with synthetic honey, sweetened flakes, and large amounts of oxidized vegetable oils. These ingredients are not only high in calories, but also cause blood sugar spikes and inflammation in the body. Over time, that damages blood vessel elasticity, encourages fat buildup in the arteries, and increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, all in the name of a healthy meal. Another often overlooked detail is the use of preservatives, flavorings, and even colorants in some granolas. These chemical additives can mess with your digestion and metabolism. The constant low-grade inflammation fueled by these compounds is enough to speed up vascular aging. That's why people who eat these products regularly may be sabotaging themselves without realizing it, even with the best intentions. But all is not lost. Granola can actually be a health ally, if made the right way. A good homemade granola, for example, includes whole oats, nuts, seeds, and a light touch of pure honey or dried dates. This version not only keeps you full longer, but also provides healthy fats, fiber, and essential minerals for heart function. It's possible to turn a problematic food into a powerful ally. All it takes is mindful choices. A practical tip is to always read the label before buying. If the first ingredients are sugar, canola oil, or glucose syrup, leave it on the shelf. Choose brands with simple, natural ingredients, or better yet, make your own at home. It's easier than it sounds, and the difference it makes to your cardiovascular health is huge. A simple swap like this can protect your arteries for years. Granola is only healthy when it's made with real ingredients, without hidden sugars or bad fats. If your current version looks more like dessert than a functional food, it's time to rethink it. The good news is that you don't have to sacrifice flavor or convenience. With just a little attention, you can turn your breakfast into a true shield against inflammation and vascular aging. Number 9. The morning juice that ages your arteries. Dr. Tanaka warned me about something many of us do thinking we're starting the day right, drinking fruit juice first thing in the morning. Seems harmless, right? After all, it's fruit. But the reality is very different. Even natural juices, when consumed often and in large quantities, can become a serious problem for vascular health. That's because when we extract juice from fruit, we remove what's most important, the fiber. Without fiber, the fructose in the juice is absorbed quickly, causing blood sugar spikes. These frequent spikes raise insulin levels and promote an inflammatory environment in the body. Over time, that leads to fat buildup in the arteries and premature aging of blood vessels. It's a silent process that happens even when we think we're making healthy breakfast choices. And don't be fooled, even freshly squeezed juice without added sugar can be risky. The problem isn't the added sugar, but the amount of fructose concentrated in a single glass. 2. Make 1 glass of orange juice, for example, you need at least 3 oranges. That means tripling the natural sugar load while eliminating almost all the fiber that would protect your body from those effects. In other words, you're drinking health on the outside but inflammation on the inside. A much better alternative is to eat the whole fruit. When you chew the fruit, the fiber slows fructose absorption, preventing glucose spikes and protecting vessel health. Plus, chewing activates satiety hormones and improves overall digestion. Eating an orange with its pulp, for example, brings completely different benefits than just drinking its juice. The full food experience is irreplaceable. Another good option is to make smoothies with low-glycemic vegetables like spinach, avocado, or cucumber combined with a whole fruit. That kind of mix balances nutrients, keeps fibers intact, and provides steady energy throughout the day. It protects your heart, strengthens your vessels, and keeps you full, the best way to start the day with energy without compromising circulation. So before setting that glass of juice on your breakfast table, think about what it's doing to your arteries. What seems healthy may actually be speeding up the aging of your blood vessels. Cut back on juice, eat the whole fruit, and start questioning your daily habits. Small changes make a big difference when it comes to longevity and quality of life. Number 8. The salad dressing that destroys your salad. It's funny how something so simple can completely cancel out the effort of a healthy meal. Dr. Tanaka was firm when he talked about salad dressings, and rightly so. Many people prepare a fresh, colorful salad full of fiber and nutrients, then cover it with an industrial dressing loaded with inflammatory ingredients. What was meant to be light and beneficial turns, in seconds, into a plate full of substances harmful to vascular health. Most ready-made dressings contain refined vegetable oils like soybean or canola, which oxidize easily and cause inflammation in the arteries. When consumed frequently, these oils promote plaque buildup on vessel walls. On top of that, they come with sugar, excess salt, preservatives, and flavor enhancers, a true inflammatory cocktail hidden behind a sweet or tangy taste that pleases the palate but overloads the body. The worst part is that these dressings are often labeled as light or fat-free, which gives consumers a false sense of safety. But when you read the ingredients, you'll find chemical thickeners, artificial sweeteners, and even colorants. These additives disrupt gut balance and affect the production of substances essential for cardiovascular health. What seems like a light choice turns out to be a circulation and wellness saboteur in the long run. The good news is that you can season your salad in a healthy, tasty, and far more nutritious way. A simple combo of extra virgin olive oil, lemon juice, and fresh herbs can transform any dish. This kind of dressing provides natural antioxidants, healthy fats, and anti-inflammatory compounds that genuinely protect the heart. And best of all, it enhances the flavor of real food instead of masking it with artificial ones. Another idea is to make homemade dressings with plain yogurt, good quality mustard, and spices like turmeric and black pepper. They're quick, full of benefits, aid digestion, and reduce the meal's glycemic impact. And the best part, you know exactly what's on your plate. Transparency in eating is an essential step for anyone serious about long-term health. So, think twice before pouring that store-bought dressing over your salad. Sometimes the biggest danger is where we least expect it. Swapping ultra-processed for natural may seem like a small detail, but in your body, that detail makes all the difference. Your arteries will thank you, and so will you, once you feel the positive effects of this simple change. Number 7. The fit cookie that sabotages your liver. We've gotten used to seeing those fit cookies on store shelves, colorful packaging, soft tones, and promises like sugar-free, gluten-free, or high in fiber. Dr. Tanaka pointed out that, more often than not, these products are closer to ultra-processed desserts than to functional foods. The intention is good, finding a healthy snack option. But unfortunately, what hides behind those labels can be a real attack on your liver and your health as a whole. These snacks, which seem harmless, are often made with refined flours, low-quality vegetable oils, and artificial sweeteners that confuse the body. Ingredients like maltodextrin, glucose syrup, and sucralose are common in these formulas. They not only increase insulin resistance, but also inflame the liver, promoting fat buildup in the organ. That's how the famous healthy little cookie can silently speed up the development of fatty liver disease. Another major issue is the lack of real nutrients. Even when they contain seeds or grains, the amount is so small that any potential benefit is wiped out by the negative impact of the rest of the ingredients. The liver, which acts as the body's filter, needs vitamins, antioxidants, and natural compounds to function well. But what it gets from these foods are toxins, preservatives, and metabolic imbalance, a real Trojan horse disguised as health. Avoiding this trap is simple. Prioritize real food. A handful of nuts, a piece of fruit with oats, or even a bit of dark chocolate are all far healthier, more nutritious options than any fit cookie from the supermarket. They provide stable energy, don't cause inflammation, and actually support liver health. Over time, small swaps like these make a world of difference in how your body functions. It's also worth paying attention to the infamous serving size trick. Many of these snacks use it to appear harmless. The calorie count, sodium levels, and even sweetener quantities look small at first, but that's because they're based on unrealistic portions like half a package or just 3 cookies. In reality, no one eats that little, and the actual intake ends up being far more harmful than the label suggests. The illusion is in the details. The best choice will always be what comes from nature, with minimal industrial interference. Your liver is essential to your body's balance, and the less toxic workload it has, the better it performs. So before reaching for that healthy-looking cookie, remember, real health doesn't come from marketing, it comes from ingredients. Make choices that respect your body, and it will reward you with more energy, clarity, and vitality. Number 6, the margarine that hardens your heart. This part of my talk with Dr. Tanaka really stuck with me. He went straight to the point, saying that margarine, which many still see as a more modern alternative to butter, is one of the biggest silent threats to cardiovascular health. And we're not talking exaggeration here. We're talking about something real, proven, and unfortunately still present in thousands of kitchens around the world. The problem with margarine goes far beyond its artificial taste or creamy texture. It's what it does inside your arteries that's frightening. Margarine is full of trans fats, a type of artificial fat that causes inflammation and oxidation in cells. These fats are the result of a chemical process called hydrogenation, which turns liquid vegetable oils into a solid paste, cheaper, more durable, but extremely harmful. When we consume trans fats regularly, our blood vessels suffer. They lose elasticity, build up plaque, and become more prone to blockages. It's literally heart hardening. The most alarming part is that trans fats don't just raise bad cholesterol, LDL, they also lower good cholesterol, HDL. That double effect is devastating for arterial health. And the worst thing is that despite bans in many countries, there are still margarines being sold with these fats, often hidden under names like modified vegetable oils or partially hydrogenated fats. It's a dangerous game between marketing and public health. But why do so many people still use margarine? The answer lies in price, habit, and misinformation. For years, butter was demonized as the cholesterol villain, while margarine was sold as the modern solution. Today, we know that butter, in moderation, is far less aggressive to the body, especially when it's high quality, natural, and free from chemical additives. The body recognizes and processes what's natural far better. If you're looking for an even healthier alternative, extra virgin olive oil is unbeatable. Besides being flavorful, it's anti-inflammatory, helps control cholesterol, and protects the arteries. Natural spreads made from avocado, hummus, or even ghee, clarified butter, are also excellent choices to replace margarine once and for all. These are foods that nourish rather than harm. Small changes like this have a direct, positive impact on cardiovascular health. The most important thing to remember is that the heart doesn't send clear signals when it's under attack. The inflammation caused by margarine can take years to show up as disease, and when it does, it's often too late. So don't wait for symptoms. Re-evaluate what you're spreading on your bread and make the switch now. Your heart deserves the same care you give to every other part of your life. Number 5, the processed meat that masks inflammation. It's a mistake to think that lean ham or light turkey breast are healthy choices for protecting your body. Dr. Tanaka made it clear that these ultra-processed meats are masters at hiding danger. They look clean, low in fat, and super convenient, but inside, they're packed with inflammatory ingredients that directly affect blood vessels. The inflammation caused by frequent consumption of these cold cuts is one of the major silent villains of cardiovascular health. Ham, turkey breast, bologna, and sausages aren't just loaded with sodium. They also contain nitrites and nitrates, preservatives used to keep color and flavor longer. The problem is, inside the body, these compounds can turn into carcinogenic substances and trigger a constant inflammatory state. This process accelerates arterial aging, hampers circulation, and raises the risk of serious heart disease. And the high salt content is another issue altogether. Too much sodium causes fluid retention, increases blood pressure, and strains the circulatory system. For those predisposed to hypertension, these light snacks can be a daily trap. What seems like a practical breakfast or snack is actually creating a dangerous imbalance in the body, with cumulative effects over time. Another problem is that these meats are rarely eaten alone. They're usually paired with other bad ingredients: white bread, artificial spreads, industrial sauces, or processed cheese. That combination becomes a daily inflammatory bomb, subtle in the short term, but devastating in the long run. And because these foods are convenient and popular, many people eat them every single day without realizing what they're doing to their bodies. But there's a way out. Instead of cold cuts, go for natural protein sources like boiled eggs, shredded chicken, sardines, tuna in water, or even seasoned chickpeas. These are simple, affordable, and much more nutritious. They provide high-quality protein without the destructive combo of additives, preservatives, and excess salt. You can keep things practical while making choices that nourish rather than inflame. The truth is, your body can handle the occasional slip-up. But the problem with processed meats is that they're part of so many people's routines: breakfast sandwiches, afternoon snacks, weekend pizza. Each time they show up on your plate, they cause micro-injuries to the body. Eventually, the body can't take it anymore, and the bill comes due. If you want to take care of your circulation, the first step is to drop the light disguise of processed meats once and for all. Number 4. The sweetener that tricks your brain and your arteries. It was surprising to hear Dr. Tanaka explain how something created to help people avoid sugar can actually pose even greater risks. Artificial sweeteners like aspartame and sucralose are widely used by those trying to control weight or stabilize blood sugar. But science shows the effect may be exactly the opposite. These compounds trick the brain and disrupt the body, especially when used daily. When you consume artificial sweeteners, your body expects calories that never come. That confuses the brain and can trigger an exaggerated hunger response and stronger cravings for sweet foods. In other words, constant use of sweeteners can increase appetite and promote weight gain, even encouraging binge eating. It's a rebound effect that many people don't notice, but it directly affects metabolism. And it doesn't stop there. Recent studies show that some sweeteners interfere with the gut microbiome, the collection of bacteria that regulate immunity, digestion, and cardiovascular health. An unbalanced gut leads to inflammation throughout the entire body, including in the arteries. That promotes stiffening of blood vessels, plaque formation, and high blood pressure, a silent problem that grows with every drop or packet. Another critical point is how sweeteners affect insulin resistance. Compounds like sucralose, when consumed excessively, change how the body handles glucose, even though they contain no sugar. This disrupts balance, creates insulin spikes, and makes long-term glucose control harder. What was supposed to be a solution turns into an aggravating factor for type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome. So what can you do? The answer lies in choosing more natural options and using them sparingly. Pure stevia, high-quality xylitol, and erythritol are better choices, especially when used occasionally. But even better is training your palate to enjoy less sweetness day to day. Over time, your body adapts and rediscovers the real taste of food, which helps not just your metabolism, but also your arteries. So don't be fooled by sugar-free or zero-calorie labels. What seems harmless might be confusing your brain and sabotaging your circulation. Make conscious choices and, whenever possible, go for natural flavor. Your body is smart. It knows exactly what to do when you give it real food. And your arteries will silently thank you for every well-made decision. Number 3. The flavored coffee that ages you from within. One of Dr. Tanaka's most striking points was how coffee, a naturally healthy beverage, has been transformed into a sugary liquid dessert. This happens with flavored coffees, a growing trend that mixes coffee's natural energy with syrups, whipped cream, vegetable creams, and condensed milk. The result is a high-calorie, inflammatory drink that accelerates cellular aging, especially in your arteries and heart. These sweetened coffees are popular because they're tasty and comforting, but the price is high. The mix of concentrated sugar, hydrogenated vegetable fat, and chemical additives causes glucose spikes and silent inflammation. With frequent consumption, your arteries lose flexibility, your vascular endothelium gets damaged, and plaque buildup risk increases. The momentary pleasure slowly turns into an invisible threat to cardiovascular health. These artificial ingredients also confuse your metabolism. The body doesn't know how to handle such a load of sugar and fat in one drink. That disrupts insulin release, leads to abdominal fat storage, and harms liver function. A routine that includes this kind of coffee can be far more dangerous than people realize, especially since many drink it more than once a day, thinking they're just enjoying a flavorful treat. Another issue is the additives used to create those special flavors. Artificial aromas, colorings, and thickeners affect digestion and gut microbiota, opening the door to inflammation and hormonal imbalance. Your palate becomes conditioned to overly sweet, artificial flavors, and coffee stops being an ally, turning instead into a saboteur of health, memory, energy, and heart function. The good news is that it's totally possible to keep your coffee habit healthy. Black coffee, filtered or espresso, unsweetened and additive-free, offers powerful antioxidants that protect the cardiovascular system. And if you want to soften the flavor, the best option is to add natural plant-based milk or a pinch of cinnamon, which also helps stabilize blood sugar. These simple tweaks preserve the beverage's benefits without harming your body. So if you want to enjoy coffee without damaging your arteries, skip the colorful cups and artificial flavors. Go straight to the essentials. Coffee doesn't need decoration to be effective. By nature, it's already a functional drink, as long as you respect its simplicity and avoid turning it into a sugary trap that ages your body from the inside out. Number 2. The vegetable oil that destroys your arteries. Dr. Tanaka raised a point that few have the courage to discuss: the indiscriminate use of vegetable oils in modern cooking. Canola, soybean, corn, these names are common in households and restaurants all over the world. Marketed as light and cholesterol-free, these oils seem safe. But the truth is that when they're heated, they oxidize easily and release inflammatory compounds that slowly destroy arterial health. These oils are rich in omega-6 fatty acids, which, when consumed in excess and without proper balance with omega-3, cause chronic inflammation in the body. This silent inflammation is one of the main triggers for the formation of atherosclerotic plaques. The walls of blood vessels become irritated, stiff, and prone to blockages. And this can happen even in slim, seemingly healthy people. Another problem with these oils lies in their manufacturing process. They go through intense chemical refining stages, including deodorization and bleaching, which strip away any remaining natural benefits of the plant. The result is a highly unstable liquid that breaks down easily when heated. And since most people use these oils for frying or sautéing, the damage multiplies. In the long run, consumption of these oils is linked not only to cardiovascular disease, but also to metabolic issues such as insulin resistance and visceral fat gain. And don't think that using just a drizzle makes it harmless. It's the daily repetition that does the damage. Each small dose adds up and contributes to the premature aging of the circulatory system. The good news is that there are far safer and healthier alternatives. Extra virgin olive oil is the #1 choice for salad dressings and even low heat cooking. For recipes that require higher heat, coconut oil or ghee, clarified butter are more stable and secure options. These fats don't oxidize easily and even offer anti-inflammatory and antioxidant benefits. Replacing refined vegetable oil with a natural option is an essential step in reversing silent inflammation and protecting your heart. It may seem like a small detail, but the impact is huge. When you change the type of fat you cook with, you also change how your body reacts, recovers, and ages. And that swap, when made consciously, can be a turning point for your arterial health. Number 1. The breakfast cereal that ages kids and adults. We'll close our journey with one more important warning from Dr. Tanaka. Breakfast cereal, yes, the one so many people see as the best way to start the day, might actually be one of the most harmful foods for vascular and metabolic health. And that goes for both children and adults. Despite their colorful boxes and slogans like rich in vitamins and minerals, the truth is that most of these cereals are nothing more than a mix of sugar, dyes, and ultra-processed ingredients. These cereals, especially those marketed to kids or fitness audiences, are based on refined flours and corn syrup, 2 components that dramatically spike blood sugar levels. This morning sugar explosion causes an insulin spike followed by a sharp energy crash. That cycle affects not just mood and concentration, but also speeds up arterial aging and encourages abdominal fat accumulation. And the problem extends to the whole grain or sugar-free versions. Often, these varieties contain artificial sweeteners and preservatives that negatively affect the gut and metabolism. When eaten daily, these cereals disrupt the gut microbiome, increase the risk of chronic inflammation, and contribute to cardiovascular disease. What looked like a healthy meal is in reality a major trigger for systemic imbalance. Children who grow up eating these products tend to develop insulin resistance earlier and are more likely to face childhood obesity and high cholesterol issues. For adults, the impact is cumulative. Over the years, regular consumption of breakfast cereals accelerates arterial degeneration and can be a silent factor behind midlife heart and metabolic problems. But that doesn't mean you have to give up a quick, tasty breakfast. Replacing industrial cereals with real food is simpler than it sounds. Thick rolled oats, chia seeds, fresh fruit, and natural yogurt make a delicious combination rich in fiber, antioxidants, and protein. This kind of breakfast stabilizes blood sugar, protects the heart, and provides true energy for the entire day. So before pouring that colorful cereal into your child's bowl, or eating your light version with skim milk, think about the invisible consequences. Choose real, living foods that nourish from the inside out. Your body doesn't need advertising, it needs real nutrition. And when that becomes part of your daily routine, the result is more vitality, lasting health, and arteries that stay young for much longer. And if you want to keep receiving the best videos for your health, subscribe to the channel. It exists for one reason only, to help you become a healthier person with a better quality of life. Helping you is my mission. In the video now appearing on your screen, forget vitamins, this common plant rebuilds muscles and regenerates your circulation. Click on the screen and check it out.